So in this lecture of biomechanics, we are studying, as in previous lectures, the basic concepts. So in this lecture we are going to see the density. Basically density is the concept of density is basically, if we say, that combines the mass of a body with the body volume. Mass, and in a very simple and most simple definition is that mass per unit volume. That means mass per unit volume is simply the density. That if we first we have to write that mass per unit volume. So the symbol of, or that is denoted by a Greek letter that is called rho. Like that, they have a resemblance with small p, but they are not p. They that is rho, that is a Greek letter. So like that. So now first we can consider that what is the formula of that, and the density basically is the mass per unit volume. So their formula is written by like density is equals to mass divided by volume. So first we have to write that density is equals to mass per volume, or mass is divided by volume. Simply that is like that. So now first we have to study what is the density. Density is basically the mass of the body with the body volume. We have discussed in very detail after studying that density and specific weight. We have studied with the given examples. So density is basically any compactness, tightness, that anything that, if we consider that if you put a lot of things in a bag, so that means they have a compact and tightness in that is called the density. Basically the mass, how much mass in the per unit volume is present, that is called density. So now units of density are, like first we have to write that units are basically, if we uses this formula as our, so first we the kg is the common unit, that is kg per meter cube, that is a kilogram per cubic meter, that is in a metric system. Basically kg is for mass and meter per cube, or per cubic meter is for volume. So simply this is the unit according to the metric system. And density, basically units of density we find through this formula. So we can take this formula as a reference. And for English system, they have no units. So after that we are going to study the specific, that is same like that in. So the specific weight is the weight per unit volume. Simply that is same resemblance that they in the density we consider the mass per unit volume, but in the specific weight we have taken the weight as a reference, or in that we have taken the mass. So that if we say the weight is proportion to mass, as we have discussed that in detail in the previous lecture, so weight is directly proportional to the mass. So simply if we say that specific weight is also directly proportional to density, because in this we consider the weight, but in previous that we in density we consider the mass. So simply that is directly proportional to each other. After that, we have seen that units of specific weight are like they have the same, like if we, okay, on the next page we have taken the units like specific weight, weight is equals to specific weight is equals to specific weight is equals to units of weight divided by units of volume. So simply Newton is the unit of our weight, Newton, and that is divided by meter per cubic meter, that is for volume. So simply that is in a metric system, and in a English system we consider the pounds per cubic foot. Pounds per cubic foot. Simply this is in a metric system, and that other one is considered as in a English system. So after that, we have discussed their examples. The first one we considered that there are two balls. So first we have to draw that. First one is tennis and second one is the hard ball. So first one is going to be both balls are like same. They have a same. They have drawn like as a simple circle, because we does not draw any diagram in a 3 dimensions. So we have drawn this is like that. Two circles, same like that. One is the tennis ball, another is considered as a hard ball. So simply if we taken the two balls, they have occupying the same space, so their volume is same. So they occupy the same space, so they have approximately the same volume. So their volume is the same as a constant, we consider as a constant. So if we say the hard ball has a more mass and more weight than the tennis ball, then what will be going? Then can we say that greater density and specific weight is greater? The density and specific weight is greater. Yes, we consider like that. If we say that we have discussed in their definitions, that's mass per unit volume, and if we consider that volume is a constant, so they are totally dependent on their mass, their main words that are mass, and that for density that is mass, and specific weight that is weight. So simply if we say one ball is a hard ball, another is tennis, first we have to write that hard ball, another one is a tennis ball. So simply hard ball is like that. If we say in a hard ball weight increases, because weight of the hard ball is more than weight of the tennis ball, so both is in increases. If weight increases, to mass is also increases. Weight is and as we have discussed earlier that they are directly proportional. So weight is decreases, so mass is also decreases in tennis ball. So hard ball is like that. So as we have discussed that weight is if weight increases, so their specific weight also increases, because they are dependent on the totally specific weight dependent on their weight. So they also increases in the hard ball, like if we write them uh, specific weight specific weight specific weight also increases, and their specific weight is going to be decreased, and their specific weight increases, and their density is also increased because their mass is increases. So taken as a resemblance, there also increases, density is also decreases in this. So tennis ball, so in a overall manner we say that the hard ball has a greater density and a specific weight than the tennis ball or the other ball, because the hard ball has more mass and more weight. We have taken another example like a lean person with the same body volume as an obese person has a higher total body density. Why? As we all know that muscle has a tightness in their them. So first, muscle has tight, their compact material is present in them, and fat has a little bit of soft material. So first we have to write and then compare with both of them. Like first one is the lean person. we have taken the second example, that is of a lean person and an obese person. Okay, so their actually their volume is going to be same, that have already I have already tell you about that. So if we have discussed them in detail, we elaborate that both have same volume, that means their volume, their presence is same, like their appearance are same. So that means the lean person has a strong or tight muscles, because of that they are lean, they are called lean person. But obese person has a fat in them, fat material is more than their muscles, so that means soft material is larger. That means obese person has less density as compared to lean person, because lean person has a large muscles, and the muscles are going to be tightness or compact in the person, in a person body. So simply that means the lean person has a more density as compared to obese, and obese person has less density as compared to lean person, simply like that. So lean person is simply, if we say the density of the lean person is high or increase, high, simply high, higher than the density of obese person is low. So that's simply the total body density of a lean person is high as compared to the obese person, because of the muscle, because their lean person muscle is denser than obese person fat. So that if we say that body density is inversely related to fat, so that if obese person if any person that is obese, because of body fat, that is inversely, so their density is decreases. Simply that means we have of a lean person with the same body volume have the volumes are same, but they're, because of the density, they have a different appearance. So obese person has a less density of less density, because fat is like soft, so it's because of softness they are not in a tight packed space, so that is like density is decreases, and in this the density is going to be increased. So next we are going to study the torque, and torque is simply, if we say torque is any rotatory factor, or if we say if we apply any force and they produce a rotatory effect, that means that is torque. Simply if we taken that pen as example, and if we apply force from the midpoint or from the center, they are going to be in a parallel manner, or in a parallel, so that means they, okay, like that, so they perform the translation motion. So simply that is in a on a book, so that is so much rough. So if we say that that is so much going to be rough, they cannot properly perform the translative motion. If we perform that in a desk or another table, so that is totally in a translation position. And the other is going to be like if we say we apply force from other than the center point, the simply the body is going to be performed in translation with combination of both translation and rotation, like I have applied like that, so they have performed, I have applied like that, and they perform rotatory motion. That means they have both translation and rotation in them. And this is not a smooth surface, because the pages of the any textbook or book is not too much smooth like that in of a table. So in it on a table they exactly perform the rotatory effect. So simply like that the person, sorry, the pencil is going to be performing both translation and rotation. So simply if we say in a first example, as we say that in a first example, so first we have to write that what is torque. Torque is okay, first we have to discuss that what those two forces. The first one in which they perform only translation, that is called centric force, because we apply force on a center, and other one is eccentric force, because we apply force other than a center point or in the center of the pen. So that means, So first we have to write that what is torque is denoted by the symbol T, and simply we have rotatory effect created by an eccentric force is known as torque. Simply this is the definition in a very simple way, that is for torque, and torque is also called as moment of force. Simply as we have discussed that that is torque. So torque, which may be thought of as a rotatory force, is the angular equivalent of linear force. That is in simple way we have said that that is an angular equivalent of linear force. So torque is the product of force, in other words, or in algebraically, torque is the product of force and the perpendicular distance. So simply if we say, if we perform any motion, so they have translation with rotation. So in a rotation they perform the perpendicular motion. Because of this perpendicular motion, we say that they have a torque producing them. The force we apply, they can perform perpendicular distance. They can perform perpendicular distance from the force of line of action to the axis of rotation. T is equals to, and the formula for that or torque is T is equals to F into D, and that is symbol for perpendicular. We have to write that, as we all know that, but we have to write that. That is a symbol for perpendicular. So simply this is like that. Um, if we say that this is the torque is equals to force into perpendicular distance, that is simply we say. Okay, now other one point is remaining, that is the, if the greater the amount of torque acting at the axis of rotation, the greater the tendency of rotation to occur. That means simply if we say that from how much force or from how much we have force applied to rotate any object in a rotatory motion, the axis of rotation is greatest if that if amount of torque increases or the amount of force we apply is increases, the rotation tendency is also increases in a simple way. So increase amount of torque increases the tendency for tendency of rotation, simply if we say. So now we have going to discuss the units of torque, that for metric and English both. So for metric we have taken the same formula, F is equals to D. So for metric there is Newton per meter and Newton per meter, sorry Newton into meter, per नहीं है, sorry per नहीं, and for that foot into pounds. Okay, like foot into pounds, that is for English system. Okay, foot into pounds. So after that we have discussed that uh, mm, impulse. So next is going to be impulse. First we have to write that what impulse. So impulse is like impulse when a force is, simply if we say impulse when a force is applied to any body, so their motion is to not depend on their magnitude. Their motion is not totally depend on their magnitude, but they also depend on the time, or they also depend on their duration of a force application, how much time they needed. So there is written like J is equals to force into time. J is a symbol for impulse, so impulse is denoted by J. So now we have discussed that what is like that if we say that when a force is applied to a body, the resulting motion of a body is not, or the, if we apply any force on a body, so if we have taken that any pen, so if we apply force, their magnitude does not depend totally, they cannot depend on their magnitude, but the duration, that how much force we apply for how much time, that is called the impulse, is correct way, and that is product of force and time. So after that we have discussed that if a large change in an object state of motion may result from a small force acting for a relatively long time or from a large force acting for a relatively short time. First we have to write that force increases, so time duration decreases, time or duration decreases, and if force is going to be decreases, so time is going to be increases. Simple, if we say that if we want to change anything, so these two conditions are going to be applied. If the force is high, time is going to be decreases, and if time is force is going to be decreased, so time is going to be increases. So they have the that ability. If we taken that, this is the example of the golf ball. When we, that is a bat, that is the golf bat, and there is, okay, that is golf ball. If we say that when we hit that or when we strike the ball, they have gradually decreases their speed due to their grass or their greenery or their ground, because they gradually loses speed because of the small force of losing rolling friction. That means when we apply the force, they can decreases or gradually loses speed because of small force of friction, and they cannot go into hole like that, or sometimes they go into hole. So this is simply example, and other example is like that. If we say, if we hit any, if a person, if a cricketer hit a ball, so when they hit a ball, they vigorously hit the ball, they have putting a large force, but their duration is for small, for some seconds or for some is for minimum seconds they have in contact with that ball, but they have put it of large force. That means they have doing the so they have when the in this example we have seen that if force increases, so time decreases, because hit the ball is large force with large force, but the time duration is only for seconds simply. And the other one is, as we go for golf ball, force is going to be increased but time is going to be decreased between, because we hit the golf ball for long duration, or we have taken the long duration. So simply like that. Other example is if a person is going to be perform a vertical jump, and they if they, the person or jumper take off with a greater velocity, they perform a jump with a greater velocity, takeoff velocity, so the higher the resulting jump. So they have, when they take off from, their jumpers takeoff velocity is higher, so their jump is going to be higher. That means their impulse is, because of they generated the larger the impulse, they have, the result is going to be the increase or higher the jump. Simply that is like that. So in this we have taken the examples, three. First one is golf ball, that is the force decreases and the time duration increases. And second one is the bat and ball, that is for force increases and time duration decreases. And third one is the vertical jump, and that means if a person executes a vertical jump larger the impulse generated against the floor. When they generate a large impulse, the greater the jumper's takeoff velocity, and that after that the higher the resulting jump. So this is simply that is like that. So we have taken that, and after that we have taken the, that is the two uh, units for them, for metric Newton per second, and for um, English unit, that is pound per second for English system. So these are the two units from that formula we have taken. So these are the two units for impulse. So in this video we have going completed the basic concepts. After that we have studying the mechanical loads on the human body. Thanks for watching.